there from Fabio. He's getting kind of progressively more frustrated. A lot of chances here. Nothing concrete. He was never totally winning. He wasn't winning in the last game. But, with every one of these missed opportunities, Danny, you get more frustrated because how many times are you going to get good positions like this against Carlsen?
Exactly. And you can lose a match, not just by losing games, but by missing your opportunities to win, right? Because at a certain point, it catches up with you against another fellow best player in the world. You can't always be better in a middle game or out of the opening. So you got to convert on those opportunities. And it's hard when Magnus just seems to always get off the hook,
And it almost seems like he's not even close to losing. I mentioned this in the last game. It's not just that he defends, but it's almost as though he's worse conceptually, but if you actually look at the arc of the game, it doesn't seem like he's concerned at all. It doesn't seem like he's anywhere near losing these games, no matter what he has on the clock.
Yeah,
it's crazy. We take it for granted how accurate of a defender he is, but he's revolutionized the art of defending slightly worse positions.
And look at him grabbing a pillow there to keep his arms comfy. Everyone loves a good whoopee.
And a sip of Iskrar.
Same reason I like to keep my Beth Harmon wig close, just in case I ever get lonely.
Wow. Aw, that's so cute.
Okay, I'll put it over here.
Adorable. Making me melt.
All right. Another isolated queen pawn potentially on the board here when the tension between the d4 and c5 pawns break. Staring contest right now. And ultimately, Fabio blinks first, says, I will trade in order to try to get the bishop here, move the knight, and play against the IQP. But note, Magnus loving himself some IQP structures against Fabio today.
Yeah, he's going for them with both colors, and I've analyzed these structures pretty extensively. And black, again, another example of a position which in 1960 would have been evaluated as a clear advantage for white. I mean, knight c3 to e2 to d4. That's the textbook approach, but black's got a lot of juice on the queens, actually both sides of the board. You can get the bishops off the board and then try to put a knight on b4. I mean, it's equal objectively. I think maybe only a tiny advantage for white.
Yeah. And again, we see Magnus willing to play these positions, especially now that he's got that 2-game lead. He's not going to blink as far as playing positions that are, just about equal and I can hold. I think that every game that goes by, we get closer to faster time controls where Magnus, I think, feels that his advantage should only grow. We'll see if Fabio can surprise the world and change that storyline. Remember, he was losing to Iragaisi and ultimately completed a comeback there, Fabiano. And so, I don't think he's saying that he has no chance in the faster portions.
I mean, Fabio played amazingly in the bullet segment, so I really can't wait for the bullet. And Fabio definitely doesn't mind a 1 or 2 point match going into the bullet. So Carlsen is trying to strike a balance between playing solid chess. He doesn't mind a couple draws here and there. But at some point, he's going to want to try to make a push to extend this lead to 4 or 5 points going into the bullet.
We said this was going to be an epic match. Of course, whenever these two guys get together, you got to remember 2018. But the chess, I know it's a little different than maybe wild scrambles we've seen in the games. This has been maybe the most high-level SCC chess as far as prep goes we've seen in any match. Like this is some high-level, neither player wanting to budge or take too many risks in these very, very closely contested positional games.
The quality of play has been fantastic. Another thing that we shouldn't take for granted, the lack of blunders, the lack of swings of the evaluation bar in all of these games. It stayed amazingly stable, even in time scrambles. I mean, both players really putting everything out on the table. And Carlsen has definitely improved his level of play as compared to the Gukesh match, just considering the objective quality of his moves here. But Fabio, again, with an edge in the endgame. I mean, this is not fun for black.
We'll see if he can push on both sides of the board. He's had Magnus up against the ropes a few times. These boxing references that I normally make in my commentary now feel even more kind of appropriate given what happened this weekend. Highest ever viewed stream on Ludwig's channel. One of the highest ever on YouTube if you missed the chess boxing affair. Where were you? But yeah, he's got him on the ropes. Will he deliver a blow is the question, right? It's hard because Magnus knows how to defend.
Well, I think the ref might have to step in and declare
Don't step in too much because then you change the result of a match.
Black looks kind of woozy. He's kind of stumbling around. I think it's time to end the match.
All right. Well, this is going to be a... Oh, he plays e4. I was going to say this is going to be a long, drawn-out kind of maneuvering affair.
I don't
I
like
think he
that move at
missed king
all.
e5.
King
Wait,
e5, king e3.
and then there's f4 check coming.
But this move smells. Then d takes c4, and then knight d5 check. I don't get it at all. King
Yeah,
e5, king e3. We can pull up an analysis board, but I mean, he probably is
yeah,
going to play these moves
yeah.
in short order.
I think that's
Why
what
are
he missed. If we look at the analysis,
strange
I
decision?
think it was king e5, king e3, takes, knight d5. Yeah, the engine agrees with that line, and that's no. Wait, Magnus takes right away, and then king e5 at the risk of putting this bishop on a nice diagonal. But even so, I don't think Fabi took the right approach there. Just checking on the body language of the players, doing what Fabi says not to do, read too much into their facial expressions.
I mean, I'm also puzzled by the move order in the way that Magnus is playing this, but I get it, because now if the knight moves away from d4, there is still knight d5, and guess what? White's king is just too far away from the action. You could end up losing your queenside pawns, and Fabi cannot afford to lose this game. I mean, this will be a crying shame if he loses a game in which, I mean, he was playing with zero risk, just a millisecond to go.
Yep. It's very un-Fabi-istic to play a move, I think, like e4 here, instead of keeping the grind, trying to remaneuver and poke and prod. I'm not saying he's going to win, but this move e4, going for the forcing lines where Black has some obvious tempo moves to grab control over the center with his king. That's probably the match score and the desire he feels to get a dub catching up with him.
And it's an overestimation of the role that the b7 pawn is playing. I think that's what really attracted Fabio to this move. He thought, oh, knight b3, knight c5. Hey, I'm going after the c pawn, but he underestimated the role of king activity in this position and the power of the move knight to d5. b4 is just as weak, if not weaker, than b7.
It's just highlighting that the b4 pawn is a problem, and if you go for variations where you have to take, well, now this king, you can get knight c5. I'll defend the pawn, and who's going to win over here? Active kings will be the deciding factor in otherwise equal endgames.
Also, bishop takes g4 is kind of in the mix in certain positions.
Oh,
so
I didn't even see that. Look
I
at
didn't
you.
either.
That coffee's finally kicking in, huh?
At last. And actually, you could play it now and get an extra pawn.
Bishop g4,
bishop might be the best move.
Bishop h5.
Yeah.
I mean, Danya, I'm not going to lie. I'm a little disappointed it took you so long to spot that tactic.
Now, in that position, there is b5. I'm disappointed, too. There is b5. I'm going to try to redeem myself
the A
here.
pawn.
And
all right, we got to
bring
back the analysis board. We got to bring back the analysis board. Okay, Magnus doesn't go for it, but we got to show what might have happened. Had he taken, bishop h5, is there weirdness here? Obviously, if you take, a6 is good. You're losing your knight. I thought so. But if you take with the knight, then takes here. Anyway, so maybe Black could have done this, but he doesn't.
And again, I think the match score influences Carlsen's decisions. In that resulting position, Black was risking a little bit. That was not... That was getting a little dicey with that passed a pawn, even if Black was better objectively. So Carlsen trying to manage the risk here, and this should still be a draw. Knight takes b4, bishop takes b7, maybe bishop b5. And Black is massaging a nice advantage here all of a sudden.
Yeah, you hold the a6 pawn. The truth is a5 becomes the weakest peshka on the board. The knight will remaneuver itself eventually to target the pawn after bishop b5.
Yeah. You can keep the bishop on d7 too.
Yeah, it's true.
Bishop e6.
There is some weird ways to kind of poke at this king side if you're Fabi.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Magnus thinking he used his time advantage well. We say managing your clock versus taking your time. He's making sure he makes the right decision. Might ultimately just be deciding how aggressive can I really be here. I don't want to lose.
Whoa.
And maybe he decides to simplify.
Whoa, that is a big move. Bishop c6. And Fabi saying, no, I want the bishops on the board, which makes sense because he's anchored himself to the a6 pawn. Bishop b5, maybe he's reticent because of knight to f5. You mentioned attacking the king side. Can't fall asleep on that. Carlsen continuing to sort of remaneuver his pieces around, but he might be overdoing it. I think he overcooked it a little bit. And I think the worst is behind Fabio after knight f5 and knight d4.
Yeah. Note that the king had some landmine squares. You would have loved to consider getting more active and running, but every time forks your uncle over here on f5, and you pick up the g7 pawn. So Magnus ran into some struggles there, clearly didn't quite know how to handle it. Fabi, like you said, probably seen the worst of it. Will he switch back to playing for a win? I want some mutual time scramble. You said the eval bar hasn't been going up and down. I showed up for the eval bar to go crazy and spike my blood pressure. This is my exercise. So let's get it going.
Look at that. F4 and G5. Another excellent defensive idea by Fabi. H takes G5, knight E3 to G4 check, knocking the king back. Then F takes G5, and then White's going to have the outside passer with H6. So all of a sudden, again, it's Carlsen who's got to play with an abundance of caution here just to make sure that you're actually drawing this game. Takes knight G4.
Knight F5, king D8, knight G7 takes H6.
Oh my God.
Before F5.
Wait a second. He's gone a different route. I mean,
but
he's still winning the pawn.
That idea was interesting, right? He's going to win the H pawn.
Uh-oh. Bishop F5 maybe to keep the pieces alive.
Yeah, black might even play bishop E4 then to... Oh, no. Fabi's getting what he wants, which is an all-out race.
Whoa. Knight G4, H6, and knight F6. I mean, black's king is going to stop the pawn from F8, but the king can be knocked back with a knight check on D7.
Oh, I love that idea.
Super dicey all of a sudden.
H6, king F8, knight F6 from Fabi. Threatens knight D7, kinda, but then the king can go to G8.
Yeah, maybe it's a fortress. Bishop H7 is an interesting attempt there to prepare knight D7. He moves back. Okay, it's a draw. It should be a draw.
It should be a draw. White had just a little bit of an opportunity there, but again, if Fabi misses this one, he'll be shaking his head as we head to the next game. Get ready for it.
Fabi looking for a way to get his knight around. Now he's worse again, and Magnus might promote his pawn. Bishop D5.
What a move. Now Magnus back in the driver's seat.
Make a move, Magnus.
We got to move 1 second. One second.
Oh my God. He's winning. Magnus is winning. He's going to go knight C3 and knock the bishop away. Unbelievable.
Oh my God. Fabi played F5 in panic. He had nothing else to do, and it's over.
Oh my God. And the mistake, Danny, for Fabi was to get his pawn to H7.